A very happy Gandhi Jayanti to everyone. We are here together from DPS Sector 45 Gurgaon to remember two very great sons of India and today celebrate one of them. It's the birth anniversary of Lal Bahadur Shastri Ji and Mahatma Gandhi. But today we are here on the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi because the stature that he reached, not just within India, but globally, is something which we cannot forget. I have with me 4 teachers, 3 parents, 2 alumni to discuss, talk, and debate about this great son of India and how relevant he remains even after a century of his going away, almost a century. So I have with me Kartik Hariharan, who is an alumnus of DPS Sector 45 Gurgaon. He holds a degree in BTech Chemical Engineering and an MA in Psychology, two very diverse streams. He is a former Teach for India Fellow, a multifaceted personality. Kartik is known for his witty repartee. His personality is a perfect blend of modern outlook and respect for traditional values. Presently, he is working as a counselor at DPS International School, which is our sister school. Thank you very much, Kartik, for joining us today.
Thank
Our
you,
next
Fahmi.
panelist is Bhavya Arora, also an alumnus and former head girl of DPS Gurgaon and Lady Shriram College. After working as a consultant with McKinsey and Company, she worked as an educator with Delhi University. Currently, she's part of one of the fastest growing edtech startups in India. A yoga enthusiast, she aims to work as a social entrepreneur in the education space. Thank you, Bhavya. Always lovely to have you here. Miss Sumbul Khan. Miss Sumbul is a member of the Parent Rep Committee of the school. As an advertising professional, she is presently working at Group M, a leading media agency. In her 18 years of work experience, she has managed many brands and projects successfully. She, however, does concede that being mother of 13-year-old twins has been the most challenging role ever. She mentors young mums at work in the art of balancing life and work. I have known her as a very active and a very involved and a very sensible mum. Thank you, Sambal, for joining us today. Ms. Ruhit Rehan is also a parent rep for Class 7. She has worked for 15 years in the field of education, during which she worked with the British Council and the Campus Group, which is regional office of Central Queensland University, to name a few. She left her corporate career in 2018 to become an entrepreneur. Today, her label Ananta is a premium women's wear label and is seen in retail outlets like Ogan, Aza Fashions, Jaipur, and Loom. Thank you, Ruhi, for sparing your time and joining us. Dr. Vinita Malik, a parent rep of Class 2, a dentist by profession, and a mum by choice. She chose to be a stay-at-home mother. She enjoys expressing herself through blogging and also works with a US publication. A health-conscious person, she's an avid runner and takes part in marathons. And those of you who have not read her blogs have missed something. She writes straight from the heart and it reaches straight into your heart. Thank you so much, Vinita, for being with us today. For the teachers of the school, these are all very senior teachers, very everything. I have Suparna Sharma, a warm and lively person. Suparna has been with DPS Gurgaon for the past 13 years. She heads the geography department along with being the rep of class 12. That is the role I think which is closest to her heart, because each time I tell her, I think you're overworked, she says, no, please don't remove me from class 12. I'm very happy there. She has been an educator for the past 25 years. Her positive outlook and progressive thinking make her a remarkable teacher who is adored by her students. Ms. Anamika Sethi joined DPS Gurgaon as a counselor in 2006. She has been instrumental in setting up the school's career counselling cell. She provides valuable assistance to students in their university application process. She also helps students acquire the right kind of attitude and skills in the area of academic achievement and social and emotional development, which serves as the foundation for their future success. Anamika, somebody who is, I think, awake 24 hours, because at whatever time I may message her, she's there to respond. And most of the time, let me tell you, children want something stat. They tell me at 12 o'clock, I wanted it by 1 a.m., ma'am. And somehow Anamika manages that as well. Miss Mamta Kanti Kumar is the Deputy Dean Student Welfare of the school. She's been with the school for 69 years. Her subject expertise is geography. She is a Fulbright Scholarship awardee and an alumnus of TEA, Teacher Excellence and Achievement Program by the US Department of State. She is a forward-thinking teacher who continuously innovates to make her lessons engaging for her students. Thank you so much, Mamta ma'am, for being
Thank
here
you, ma'am. Thank you,
with
ma'am.
your ready smile.
Thank you.
Avni Mehta, one of the youngest members of the school faculty. Avni started a teaching career with DPS Sector 45 as a history teacher. She has been with us for 7 years now. She is tech savvy who enjoys exploring new apps for making teaching learning informative, interesting, and joyful. She received the special mention in the Education Prize 2018 Senior School category organized by T. Gelf on the theme Creative Classrooms. What a lovely panel this is, and how happy I am to have all of you here. So let's set the context for what we are going to do today. We are going to talk about Gandhi's values, ideals, ideas, what he stood for. And for most of us, these remain relevant today. But somewhere in the humdrum of life, we see some erosion somewhere, and we'd like to just talk about it to just see how we can get it all back. So I'll begin with the idea of the power of one, how he alone decided that he's going to do it whether anybody joins him or not, and lo and behold, he was joined by people all the time. uh, it is a matter of great pride that the UN has also declared his date of birth as the International Day for World for Non-Violence. I think it's a beautiful thought that someone in India is able to influence global thought. So I will start by first playing a video from our Pro Vice Chairperson, Mrs. Dhara Jaipuria, who I have seen in some ways as pretty Gandhian in the very idea that she always says, we will do it. If anybody joins, let them. If they don't, too bad. So whether it's a Shiksha Kendra, whether it's Pravaha, whether it is our own school, the way she has set it up, I think she embodies the whole ideal of power of one. So Dive, may I request you to play Dhara ma'am's video, please?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Today, the whole country is celebrating Gandhi Jayanti, the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi, who is also the father of the nation and the saint of Sabarmati. I have always been very inspired by the teachings of Gandhiji, the principles of truth, ahimsa, and simplicity. Let's pay homage today to this great soul by reflecting on his principles and imbibing them in our daily lives. Jai Hind.
That was short and sweet, but that's how Dhara ma'am is. We now have a very small presentation by the students of class 1 and 2 from their homes, how they are paying their homage to Mahatma Gandhi, Bapu. Deve, if you could have that small video as well, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Gandhi Jayanti is a national festival celebrated on 2nd October every year. It is the birthday of our dear Bapu. His birthday is also celebrated as the International Day of Non-Violence. He led the struggle for freedom. He is also called the father of the nation. This name was given to him by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Gandhiji inspired everyone to spin their cloth using the charkha. He always believed in ahimsa, which means non-violence. Gandhiji believed that we should be an example for others and practice what we preach. In the words of Gandhiji, be the change you wish to see in others. Gandhiji was given the title of Mahatma by Rabindranath Tagore, the poet who wrote our national anthem, Jana Gana Mana. Gandhi Jayanti, let the change begin from us. Let's all promise to always speak the truth, help others with a smile. We should always follow the footsteps of Gandhiji by maintaining cleanliness and caring for Mother Earth. Always remember that cleanliness is next to godliness. Not to only our surroundings, we should keep our thoughts clean. Think good, do good. अहिंसा के थे वो पुजारी जिन्होंने हिम्मत कभी न हारी रोक न पाई जिनको आंधी वो थे हमारे प्यारे महात्मा गांधी Learn to forgive and never hurt anyone. As Gandhiji said, forgiveness is nobility. आज भी गांधी जी के नाम का डंका सारी दुनिया में बजता है हर कोई गांधी जी को शत-शत नमन करता है यूं ही कोई महान नहीं बन जाता अपने अच्छे कर्मों से कोई महान न बनता है हैप्पी गांधी जयंती टू ऑल
That was lovely. I think we are all clapping silently. So let's go deep into our discussion now. I'll begin first with the first segment where I want to talk about ahimsa. So ahimsa in its most basic, most simple translation means non-violence. And non-violence or violence is not only physical. We see violence in words, we see violence in thoughts, we see violence in emotional outbursts. So my first question will go out to Karthik. As a teacher and as a young person, a young influencer, how do we make this quality of non-violence, of ahimsa, relevant for our students? And how do we inspire ourselves to follow ahimsa? It's a twin
Thank you
question.
for the question, ma'am. Before I begin, I just want to send my heartfelt love to the parents and the teachers of grade 1. That was easily one of the most beautiful videos I have seen in the longest time. The kids really made my day, and I think they've taught all of us about Gandhian thought through that beautiful message. So thank you, children of grade 1. Like, too good. Now, coming to the question, how do we make the teaching of ahimsa relevant to the children? I want to begin with a small story. And this is the story of Guru Yogananda ji in his ashram with his guru. And it's a beautiful story which explains ahimsa as a concept. And that is what I see needs to get taught to the youth and to all of us today. The story is quite simple. Once, when he was listening to a discourse from his guru, a rude little mosquito began to disturb him. When the mosquito sat on his thighs, he instinctively raised his hands to strike it. A thought then entered his mind that he should stick to the principle of ahimsa or non-violence and spare the mosquito. He hesitated, and Sri Yukteswar ji watched this, and he said, "Why don't you finish the job?" He asked Yogananda ji. "Are you advocating that I take a life?" inquired the surprised person at his guru's words. "No, I am not," replied Sri Yukteswar. "But in your mind, you have already done the deed of killing the mosquito. Killing the mosquito or sparing it now does not make that much of a difference." "I do not understand," he replied. Then the guru explained, "The principle of ahimsa is more to do with the removal of the desire to kill. The world is inconveniently arranged for a literal practice of ahimsa. Man may be compelled to exterminate harmful creatures, but he is not under any compulsion to feel anger or animosity towards them." So that in its essence talks about ahimsa or non-harmfulness or harmlessness, to not wish any harm to any living creature, not even to any lifeless object. And so when you look at the root of it, ahimsa is about the intent rather than the action itself. It is an attitude of universal benevolence. So making it relevant to children today, I believe that it comes to the practice of self reflection through inquiry. When we sit down to actually inquire why a child feels like getting angry, why do they feel animosity, where does it come from? And when they start the practice of questioning it at its root and removing the desire to harm, that is how we focus on intent and that is how we bring it into practice. So that's my 2 cents on ahimsa.
Excellent. What a beautiful story that explains it all. The thought of ahimsa. Does anyone want to add to this from the panel? Any thoughts?
Ma'am, just 2 words.
Yes, Mamta ma'am. Yes.
Love and compassion. So, ahimsa, love and compassion is how it goes. Is what when I've been reading about Gandhiji over the days. So beautiful. So there is non-violence, and it has to be with love and compassion. So the greater good.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mamta ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
My next question goes out to Vinita ma'am.
Yes.
In connection with what Karthik said, how do you think homes can practice and emulate ideals of non-violence while being inside a society which is somewhat violent? And God forbid you open the television and that's all you see, or the newspaper for that matter. So, how do you think, as a mother, as an influencer, because your blogs influence scores of people, how do you think we can emulate and practice non-violence?
Ma'am, the basic thing as a mother that I feel for you, two young children. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. So, especially during this corona times and pandemics, their screen time has increased. Even the frustration is rising everywhere. So, the only thing that I would like to do as a parent is to initiate them towards a mindful living. There are three things to it. One is what you need to survive. That is the very basic minimum of ahimsa, where you are being careful about the environment, before of your emotional needs of everyone around you. And then there are desires, which are also a natural thing for the kids of that age. So to differentiate between what you want, by all means work hard on it, no harm in it, and to differentiate what society or the social media around you wants you to want. So these are two very different things, and very important to make your children understand at an early age. Okay, whatever you see on the TV, on the social media, on the internet is not the real life. The real life happens behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
if you are mindful about your actions, about your thoughts, about your discussions, eventually I feel the kids learn that. They imbibe from you more than they would with the society or the social media put together. If you are conscious about what you are doing, if you are mindful about the things you are buying, conscious about the food you are eating, even small little things at home. Let's say during these times, initially when there was total lockdown, so we were not buying as many toys, or my daughter is very fond of putting those small little clips, but ठीक है, but for 6 months you didn't get any new one and there was no harm in it also, you were happy without it also. So small little thing, how you can be more conscious of what you are feeling and what society or the television wants you to feel and want. So differentiating between the two things, it becomes very helpful, and making them understand with your own actions. That is where the difference comes in. So that
So-
is where I think, yeah.
So I guess you're propagating the idea of parenting that is articulated well.
Yeah,
You speak,
yeah,
you talk to
exactly.
the children. Don't leave them
Yeah.
at the mercy of social media or television.
Yeah.
Great idea. Anyone wants to comment on that? Any additions? Yes, Anamika ma'am.
Ma'am, I'll just reiterate Gandhiji's philosophy with reference to social media. Bura mat dekho, bura mat suno, bura mat bolo. So there is so much that is information that is available, and too much of information can be a menace too. So yes, we have to be very mindful of what we type, what we write, because we can't retract those messages and we don't know the repercussions. So we have to be mindful.
Thank you so much, Anamika, ma'am.
Ma'am, there's just one thing that I would
Yes.
like to add.
Yes, Vinita, please.
Given the times and society we are moving in, given the direction education is going on, social media and whatever influences we have, let's accept they are going to be a part of our life. More so about the kids. Online classes at this age we could never even dream of, but now we are all doing.
Absolutely.
So the thing is I think we have to move a step forward from that ke bura na dekho, because it is all there. Aap dekh rahe ho. You cannot eliminate it from your life. The whole point being, you have to learn to distinguish what is useful to you and what is the thing that you have to discard to make your life a little more meaningful to it. That is the way
I
I
agree.
feel.
You can't actually remove all the evil
negatives,
or
you
wrong,
cannot.
but the child should be able to see it and still not get into it. That is I would think, more success. My next question goes out to Avni, a young teacher. Sometimes, Avni, non-violence or ahimsa is seen as a sign of weakness, especially among young children. So, how do you practically tell them about ahimsa and teach them that non-violence is the only way forward?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. Ma'am, I believe young students are very impressionist. The way we behave in front of them is the way they will follow. And I'm not just talking about the middle school or the primary, I'm also talking about senior students. So I feel as a teacher, I have to tell them that non-violence, ahimsa, it's like absence of injury. Now, this injury can be mental, it can be physical. And for our generation, I believe the injury we are talking about is more mental, the frustration, the disappointment, the sadness of not meeting their friends or, not going out in the present scenario. All this frustration adds up to this feeling where the frustration leads to some violent acts. So if we just stop the frustration and disappointment on its way. So I just tell my students very simple ways. It's not a very complex process. Very simple. Let go. That's the first thing. Second is learn to forgive. Even if it's your friend or somebody who's not done something you like, just let it go and forgive. The next step I really believe is that they have to dream. For my students, dreaming is, I think, the weapon. Weapon is a negative word, but it's the vision through which they can actually go through anything in life. And as I tell my students in a very short quote, and Gandhiji said it, in your own gentle way, shake the world. So I think each of my students has that vision, that power, and that charisma, I would say, that they can bring about the change in the world.
Wow, that's such a beautiful, somewhat utopian thought, but I do believe you, Avni, because I know that the students really, really look up to you.
Thank you.
Anyone wants to add? Yes, Aparna ma'am.
Beautiful thoughts, ma'am, shared by Avni. I just would like to add one more thing, which I, as a rep, feel, and I do try and imbibe in my students, and that is while communicating. If this generation doesn't realize that even while communicating, there can be violence in their language. There can be violence. It can lead to violence. The language which they are using. The road rage and those kind of things, the bullying aspect, which we all face at this level. So it's very important to make this generation understand that ahimsa, non-violence is not only about, fighting a war or a battle or terrorism
Getting
and those
physical,
things, yes. But in our daily lives, it also needs to be imbibed in how we communicate with each other, how we speak. That should be an important aspect. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Saparna, for adding to that. I think it's a very, very important thing. And I'll share a very small anecdote here. Just 3 days ago, I got a mail in the middle of the night. I mean, it was middle of the night in India. For me, it was about 9 or 10 o'clock. And it was somebody who had written in capitals about how terrible the school is and how nothing is working. And I mean, I could see that he was anguished. So I had the choice of writing back an equally angry mail. So I chose not to. I just wrote very gently I said, whoever you are, I don't even know who you are. But the first thing is, you were not invited to come to the school. And secondly, you've not been forced to stay on. So, what is happening? I mean, just to my surprise, I mean, he could have also let it go. He responded the next day with a sorry that I was very upset. And I'm really sorry I wrote all those things. I didn't mean any of them. Then went my message, which I hope will be a lifelong one for him, that when you are angry, don't write or say anything. Just keep shut. That's my mantra. Never, I read this somewhere, never promise anything when you are really happy, and never say something hurtful when you are really angry. So both will be really extreme, which you may not be able to even fulfill. So learn to calm down, and I think that's a very, very important lesson. I think at the end of the segment, I will share a video by my mentor, Dr. Shama Chona, who I think all of you have met and seen and heard about. So she's sent out a small message on my request for all our viewers. Deve, please.
I'm so pleased that we are remembering Gandhi on Gandhi Jayanti. But I would be even more pleased if we could remember Gandhi every single day. He is my inspiration and a part of my daily prayer. When I repeat his thoughts, happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are all in harmony. My young friends, if you can imbibe even the slightest of Gandhi, it would be a great experience, and you will realize that you can shake the world in a very gentle way. He said, be the change you wish to see in the world. We expect so much from others without trying to do things ourselves and realizing what problems there can be, which we point as mistakes or faults. As far as the modern world is concerned, where there is so much of terror, there is so much of enmity, there is so much of fighting going on the world over, if we could remember Gandhi every single day.
So true. Exactly what some of us have echoed just now. So today is his birthday, so it's special. But we do remember in our actions, words, thoughts, I think every day. The next message goes out from a very decorated soldier, General Shankar Prasad, who also happens to be a very dear friend of mine. He has been coming to our school off and on whenever he's been invited. A very well-spoken gentleman. You may have seen him on television often. And somebody who believes in the ideals of Gandhiji. So he sent a message on my request. Deve, can we please play that?
60 years ago, when I was at school, we were taught certain principles which Mahatma Gandhi promoted. The first amongst them was non-violence, ahimsa. The second was religious pluralism. The third, I still remember, was political tolerance. The fourth was about simplicity. And the fifth, which is very important, is about decluttering your mind, decluttering your surroundings. Non-violence is something that is most relevant even today. You find all the countries in the world at some kind of violence or the other, terrorism all across the world. You find neighbors fighting, you find road rage. That is something that I'm always reminded of, Mahatma Gandhi saying non-violence. The second important thing is spoke about was political tolerance. Look at the way the politics in the world is going today, particularly in our country. Yes, it's a democracy. Everybody has a right to say what he needs to say. But in the interest of the country, the whole country and the whole political spectrum must unite. The third important thing that crosses my mind even today in relation to Mahatma Gandhi's teachings are religious pluralism. Why can't all religions be treated equal? Mahatma Gandhi promoted the concept of every religion, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, all are equal. The God is the same. Today, communities are fighting on religious grounds. Elections are fought on religious grounds. The community is completely divided on religion. That is the reason why the country can never prosper. The only way to prosper is to promote every religion and let people follow the religion they want to, tolerating the other religion. The next important issue we spoke about was simplicity. Today, I find in the world, simplicity is something that is completely lost. People are going in all kinds of directions to show off, to do all kinds of stuff. Why can't we lead simple, straightforward life? And finally, which troubles me the most, is cluttering of the mind, cluttering of the environment. Why can't we declutter? Mahatma Gandhi promoted the concept of decluttering. Can we not declutter our mind? Can we not declutter our surrounding? Can we not live more simply? These are the important 5 lessons that I recall even today of Mahatma Gandhi.
I think I'd like to clap for these 2 messages from
Yeah.
Mrs. Chona, and Dr. Chona and General Prasad. Very well spoken, and I think encapsulate what we are going to be discussing in greater detail. I come now to the second segment of our conversation, which is on Satyagraha, an idea which was propounded by Gandhiji when he came to India from South Africa and decided that whatever was going wrong should not be met with violence or, noise, but just quietly resist, quietly say your piece, and, just don't get violent. And to be honest, that is what got us our freedom. Eventually, I think the Satyagraha movement was something which was the underlying for all the other movements, the civil disobedience or the non-cooperation or the Quit India. So I'll start with Bhavya now, who in my opinion represents the youth, she and Karthik both. So how can this particular teaching of Gandhiji be imbibed in today's day of strife? There is a lot of discontent, a lot of turmoil, COVID or non-COVID. So how can the idea of Satyagraha be imbibed today, especially by the youth? Over to you, Bhavya.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to begin by saying it's not easy. Even speaking about it sounds a bit idealistic, but I think one of the core principles, if you want to, follow this philosophy, which will probably reap a lot of benefit, is that you have to stop reacting in the moment, and you have to rather respond. And just some things that I've picked up in this conversation, and as I was thinking about this question, one of the most important things to do is to measure your exposure. I know social media and screen time is inevitable now and has been inevitable for quite some time, but it's important to measure that, because once you're bombarded by information, your thoughts and external thoughts and what's good and what's bad, the boundary is just super unclear. That's one part. I think the second part is, and I mean, I'm an economics student, so the way I like to think about it is that there's negative returns on information after the point. So just stop. At some point say this information's enough. Second thing, again, economics always on my mind is, I like to believe that I always have insufficient, information. So I will always want to verify my opinion. Either with something that I read in the past, that I had thought about in the past, or with seniors, with people who are my mentors, people who I feel whose opinions I treasure. My grandparents, all these videos, I feel like if everyone just spoke to their grandparents more, the world would be a nicer place. And third and not the last is something that I read in Osho's philosophy. So he says that your thoughts are like a dog that you've raised all your life. You've always trained that dog to come to you. You've petted him, and now suddenly one day you wake up and say, "No, I'm going to declutter. I'm not going to entertain my thoughts." It's not going to happen that way. Let them come. Just sit there. Let all your thoughts come. Just be mindful. Be peaceful, and at some point it will stop, right? And you will know what resonates with you and what's the non-violent way to go ahead. So I believe it's a combination of those three, just putting an end to things, knowing that you are probably dumb if you haven't sharpened those opinions, and then treasuring your own thoughts and staying true to them.
Very nice. Well said, and great ideas for people to pick up and imbibe. Anyone wants to add Anyone wants to comment or say something? Okay. So I'll move to the next question, which is to Sambal. You know, truth and satyagraha were the core values of Gandhian thought. We've all been talking about that. So in today's day of fake news, in today's day of social media becoming an influencer, which somehow we are not able to control, how do we encourage Gen Next to remain truthful?
Thank you, ma'am, for the question. So one of the first things that I'd like to kind of sort of mention, and that is what Gandhiji always said. That is as well. He felt there's nothing called Gandhiism. He was quite against it because he was actually referring back to something that's as old as time. I think one of the biggest things about the way humankind has evolved is the constant seeking of truth. So truth and his concept of truth came in, from from a scripture as old as the Upanishads, right? So when we have this line of Satyamev Jayate, or truth always prevails. And it's such a pertinent line, ma'am, that is, something that's going to happen. So today's kids, while, like I know as a mom, we're very scared. As, parents, we're scared. As stakeholders of people who are going to kind of give away the future to the next generation, we are very concerned because the age of artificial intelligence, the age of deep fakes, the age of too much of information and very little knowledge. So how does truth then prevail? I mean, how does it happen? Will it be a war that we're fighting, which is going to be like sort of, war that we're going to lose to bots? Is it a war that we're going to use to codes? But interestingly, what I'm seeing, and I see that when I mentor, certain students, when I kind of, talk to the young kids, they're constantly, it's like a compass, like the gravitational force that is moving the compass. They actually are looking at sifting a lot more information. So when Bhavya spoke, I was so thrilled because she is the representative of the new generation. She talked about the negative return of information. She talked about that she doesn't know enough and she needs to seek more. And I think that's what all of our kids will be eventually doing. So I think whenever there is a situation that arises where we as humanity feel threatened, and the most we feel threatened by is untruth and unfairness and injustice. And, and as these kids are growing up, and thankfully with teachers like you all, they will find a way, I'm sure, because, that is something that I keep, reiterating to my kids, to their friends, that don't worry, you will find a way, even though you might struggle today, because there's a huge struggle in sort of, finding the truth out. And incidentally, many years ago when I joined advertising, there was a ethic part of doing business that used to trouble me, because it is at the end of the day, feeding into a more consumer society. And I joined an agency, it's McCann, and its slogan was truth well told. So all advertising also in my profession, I believe, makes sense only if there is a truth or a truism behind it. So there's nothing that anyone is going to accept unless you back it up with truth. So yes, on that note is, what I would like to kind of concede. And another anecdote, yesterday I discovered my daughter was a little shifty, and I went up to her and I spoke with her. I said, Maya, what happened? And she's like, nothing at all. How are you doing? I'm like, you never asked me how am I doing. What's wrong? And and she showed me her iPad. So it had fallen down. It was smashed to, like the whole screen is broken. And she said, I was scared to tell you the truth because I thought that you'll be very angry. But it's the truth. The fact that you had the, gumption to tell me the truth is by itself so courageous that I don't have the right to be angry with you anymore. So I think somewhere we need to encourage that behavior, that no matter what the consequence can be of telling the truth, little acts, little signals that we keep giving our kids are extremely important.
I think very, very nice anecdote you've shared with us, Sambal, and very doable if we keep telling our children, tell me the truth. So when I was a teacher, I had this very democratic way of assigning work. So I would give the work and I would say, when do you want to give it? I never said bring it tomorrow, or bring it on Friday because it's my free day, or give it to me on Monday. I would ask them. So they would choose a day, which would be sometimes much too late, but I never commented. I said, okay, if it's that day, it's that day. But that day, if you don't give the work, then hell will break loose. And even that day, when there were 2 or 3 children out of a class of 42, 43 in RK Puram and Vasant Kunj, if I would say reason, I was always told the truth that, ma'am, I completely forgot. Had they said next day, I would have done it, but I just forgot. Or that, ma'am, I was going to do it, but then some guests came and then we got busy and then it just slipped my mind. So honesty, otherwise, saying I forgot the notebook at home or my dog ate the homework or, rubbish like that. We've heard it far too often, but I saw this as my biggest victory that children tell me the truth. So just like that. Anyone wants to come in on this one? Yes, Mamta, ma'am.
And just one more thing which I tell my children, truth is the complete truth, no partial truth.
Absolutely.
Partial truth is not truth. It has to be the complete truth, whatever be it.
Absolutely. And another thing which I tell the children now, even now, is that, when you tell a lie, you're likely to forget it.
Yes.
2 days later, you'll tell me another lie. And unfortunately, I'll remember your first lie and then you'll be caught. Whereas truth is only one. Jo bhi hua hai, that is the truth, that is one. Falsehoods can be several. You can, cook up as many as you want. My next question on this segment goes out to Anamika, which is on around this idea of truth. And then sometimes there are ethical dilemmas, So how would you train ourselves as role models and our children to address ethical dilemmas? That nobody's watching, can I still do it? Nobody will come to know.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, we all know that our value system shapes our personality and character. And I would say that integrity is one of the core values. Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching us. And if we delve a little deeper, we'll understand that actually it's integrity that enhances all our other values also, and thus is the foundation of our character. Having said that, now the real test of integrity comes when we are faced with ethical dilemmas and how we handle them. There is no point in us assuming that we have high integrity when we break down when a real situation comes. We just cannot support a negative uh, outcome, and so it's very important for us not to accept if we've done wrong, not to justify any wrong action. And real test of character is when we are faced with challenging situations. And in the long run, people who succeed are those who actually don't waver during tough times. And I will conclude with one of my favorite quotes in our school corridor, which says, wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it, and right is right, even if no one is doing it.
Thank you, Namika. Very well said. Any thoughts on that? Yes, Bhavya.
Ma'am, I think my parents always say this to me, that you're never really alone, right? You're with yourself, and nobody else matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is something which I think I was brought up with that, and I did it with my children, that, don't tell me what everybody is doing. Tell me about you. So again, the power of one. Even if you're alone, if you're doing the right thing, you will shine always. I will end the segment with the 2 videos again. One from Dr. Amita Vatal, who's the principal of Springdale School and somebody who I respect a lot as a peer. And from Major Atul Dev, who's, okay, I'll introduce him later after Amita's video. Deve, over to Amita's video, please.
Which such a man is this, in flesh and blood, ever walked this earth? The Mahatma, a man who helped millions all over the world continue to breathe, to dream, ache for a world yet in the making, a brave new world. No special celestial arrangement marked the arrival of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. No astrologer predicted this greatness that lay in store for this.
No seer divined that he would become one of the greatest apostles on violence. And yet, Gandhi was someone who was able to convert everything he did into an icon, into a symbol, into a brand, as we recognize today. From the time that he took the identity pass in South Africa and burnt it, which was a symbol of liberation, he picked up a pinch of salt and brought an entire empire to its knees. He used his body as the greatest symbol to reflect the poverty of the Indian common man. Gandhi empowered women in the Lancashire Mills. He was one of the greatest statesmen the world ever knew. गांधी आज भी जिंदा। कौन कहता है गांधी आज जिंदा नहीं है? वो जिंदा है हमारे बीच में, हमारे कपड़ों में, खादी के रूप में, हमारे स्वच्छ भारत में, सफाई के रूप में, हमारे रुपयों में, आदर्श के रूप में, हमारे संविधान में, कानून के रूप में, हमारे सिनेमा में, किरदारों के रूप में, हमारे बुजुर्गों में, साथी के रूप में, हमारे बच्चों में, हमारे युवकों में, आशा के रूप में। गांधी आज भी जिंदा, तुम कल भी जिंदा रहोगे। बापू, आप हमेशा जिंदा रहो।
Lovely. And the next one is by Major Atul Dev, who's also been associated with the school for several years. He's the convener of the INTAC, the organization that looks after the heritage and culture of our country. And he's done sterling work in that sphere in the city of Gurgaon, organizes a lot of heritage quizzes, holds hearts for weavers of the neighboring areas, and somebody again who is, I think, a role model for the young people. Deve, Major Dev's video, please.
Greetings, friends. The question before us today is the relevance of Gandhi and his principles. The two pillars of Gandhian teachings are truth and non-violence. Would they not be relevant for all times to come? Can I consciously advocate violence? Would I condone anyone not saying the truth? I am certain the response from all to these questions would be a loud no. That leads me to a simple conclusion. Gandhiji's principles or thoughts or philosophies, whatever you may like to call them, are still so relevant and need to be practiced and taught. The two prime Gandhian principles can never be outdated, no matter what people say and believe. Violence has never resolved any issues. Gandhiji's principle of non-violence played an important role in our own freedom movement. The peaceful satyagraha became the guiding light of the world seeking freedom from their masters, and it succeeded universally. Where is then any doubt in accepting that Gandhiji's two main philosophies of truth and non-violence are still so relevant today in a world full of violence and half-truths? Thank you, friends.
Okay, I now come to the third and last segment of the question answer, and then we get on to a little bit of fun. So my question goes out to Ruhi as a parent. So there's a very famous saying that the earth has enough for man's need and not for his greed. So we need to get back to sustainable living and not get into this rat race of acquiring. I think that past 6 months have been a case in point where we have actually scaled down and learn to survive, learn to be happy in what we have and not aspire for anything more. So, do you think that post pandemic, can we hope for a world which is simpler? Can we hope for everybody continuing with the scaling down? Or do you think we're going to go back to our wasteful ways and total materialism?
Thank you, ma'am. Gandhianism starts with the famous line, simple living, high thinking, which itself is suggestive of the fact that how an individual thinks, his thoughts play a pivotal role in shaping his or her life. If we see in today's materialistic world, people are driven by desire to achieve and acquire more and more. Social values have degraded to an extent that people are not hesitant in killing others for the gratification of their own needs. I feel that concept of simple living and high thinking is something that everyone should adopt. Uh, the concept is also called minimalism, where a person owns a bare minimum items in their house. Now, if we look at, it sounds easy, but it is very difficult to practice in today's life. There is no such established lifestyle to achieve simple living and high thinking. If we look at COVID-19 pandemic, I think it has taught us a lot all that we need to survive. That is mainly basic essentials like a house, food, maybe a vehicle, which we really didn't use during the pandemic, which was very less used, and medicines. All others are luxury, which we don't really need. Rest is all. We need to, ma'am, start differentiating between need and desires. Now, desires can be endless, but needs are basic needs, which one should strive for. COVID-19 pandemic has also taught us many lessons, one of which is joy of helping others. So it's just not about joy. We should do it as a responsibility and gratitude about a privilege that God has granted us. Now, should try to, like Lieutenant General Shankar said, we need to declutter. So we need to declutter in our mind. We need to declutter in our thoughts. We need to strive to get the max out of what we have. I think post pandemic, it's going to be a very mixed, reaction. A lot of people who have now learned to, work out within their resources, limited resources, would manage, but there are others who are eagerly waiting for the pandemic to get over. Each and every day is like very difficult for them. So they're actually waiting when they will be able to step out, when they will be able to splurge, how the life will get back to normal. And they're just trying very hard to be there right now. So I think it's going to be a mix, ma'am. We really can't predict how the future would be.
So I think, again, as influencers, if anybody is watching this event today, and if they are thinking of when will the pandemic get over and I go and hit the malls and every shop and buy everything that I can get my hands on, I hope that they will rethink. Because again, the more you acquire, the more you want.
Yes.
There has to be a line somewhere that, okay, this is enough. And linked to this, my question goes out to Suparna. Did anyone have to add something to this? I forgot to ask.
Can I?
Yes, Virika, please.
Ma'am, there's just one thing. Ruhi has put it out so beautifully. I feel rather than teaching the youngsters or the kids, if we imbibe that values in ourselves, if we slow down in our lives, there's nothing to teach them. They'll do it automatically. So that is the whole point. If we bring the change in ourselves, so there is no point teaching them. They'll do it automatically because they'll see that way of life. So some values, some things will automatically come in them.
Absolutely.
Slowing down is more important for us rather than teaching them.
They'll learn. Actually, you're right. They'll learn from us. They'll imbibe. See, a lot of us used to go out to eat out at least twice a week, especially on the weekends.
Yeah.
Now, when the pandemic happened and we were all locked inside, we learned to cook those things because we didn't go just for the heck of it. We wanted to. We actually enjoy that. Yeah. So I think I've become a master chef. I've learned to make things I've never made before.
Exactly.
And I now find that they're tastier and they're definitely healthier.
Obviously.
So not to close down all establishments that are serving food. We will get back to that, but a little slowing down.
Yeah.
So, as a school principal, I recognized that there were so many children falling sick after eating out. Especially if they've eaten in the wrong sort of place. And I used to always wonder that how can a parent take a child for a eating out in a not so great place a day before the exam? The poor child is coming for an exam either with loosies or with a stomach ache. I couldn't fathom that. So linked to this, Suparna ma'am, is a question to you. Ruhi, you were saying something?
Yes, ma'am. I would just like to add just one thing. That I remember when we were small, my brother used to, go running to my father and say, like, "Hi, I saw these new shoes. Reebok shoes used to be like a big thing at that point of time, and I need to possess them. So can you just buy them?" So my dad used to just look at him and look at me, and then there's one gyan which he always gave us. He said, "There are many things which you will see. There are good things, but not all good things have to be possessed. They can be appreciated and they can be left." So that's the kind of upbringing,
Beautiful.
that's what we've learned throughout from him.
Yeah. So when I told my children this one, that and when we were growing up, me and my two brothers, we were reasonably well off, but we were allowed to ask for things on our birthdays or for Diwali, Holi, or for a New Year's maybe. We couldn't just point to something and say we want this. So when my son asked me, he said, "Were you poor?" I said, "No, we weren't poor." It's just a discipline that we had. You don't go out and immediately start buying something, So linked to that, Suparna ma'am, is the question to you. That when we're talking about minimalism, when we're talking about reducing, because again, that whole idea that there's enough for man's need, not for his greed. And you as a geography teacher talk to children about degradation of the environment. How do we then keep this idea relevant for the youth now? That even our natural resources are getting depleted. The more you use, the whole idea of carpooling, the whole idea which was started in Delhi of odd and even cars, because there's a crying need to reduce consumption of certain things so that they last out. So Suparna ma'am, over to you with regard to degradation of the environment, linking it to simple living.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would like to start with where you left, and that is about questioning question which your son asked, that were you poor? This is exactly what even I feel very strongly we need to imbibe in our children, that just because we can afford something, we don't need to buy it or possess it. Resources are they are there for the whole nation. I still remember a video which you had shared, ma'am, long back, and I use it quite frequently when I'm teaching them sustainable development, where this video showed about one of the foreign countries where when the food is ordered and they are expected to finish all the food which is there in their plate, whatever they have ordered. They're not supposed to leave everything and, okay, I've had my fill and now I can leave and move away, because it is taught to them that these are national resources. This is not something because you have paid for it, you have a right to waste. So that remains to be one of the core idea whenever I talk to children about sustainable development. That sustainable development is where you sustain your own living in a way where just because you can afford a thing, you can't waste it. Nature takes care of everything. Nature has its own way. Nature gives disasters happen in a natural way, but nature revives itself. We have taught children that we move from human beings have moved from a stage of necessity to a stage of freedom, but that freedom has come with a cost. And if the sustainable development goals are not kept in mind, if we have only agenda 2030 but we don't have people participating in it, contributing to it, then it would remain probably more of an agenda. Those 69 targets or whatever we have, we would probably not need it if the simple philosophy of recognizing that transformative changes are required in all aspects, the way we live, the way we produce, the way we consume. Green Revolution, we teach them what is happening to our land. just because we are trying to extract more out of our land. So over the years, how our land has become degraded, how are our rivers suffering because of technological advancement, development, where we are not able to manage our waste. So technology, there's a cost which is attached to all these things. And moment our children would recognize that, I think the world would be a better place to live. Our environment would be taken care of, and we will go in hand with the nature, which has the self-cleansing, self-revival authority. I mean, nature has that power, and last 6 months have shown it to us, ma'am.
Absolutely. Does anyone want to add to this, to what ma'am said? Yes, Umbal. And then Mamta.
I was having a conversation a couple of days ago, and my husband just started, if only I had this and I'll be the most satisfied and all of that. So then Maya added and my son added, then like, what is your idea of being very rich? I said, the richest person is who doesn't want anything anymore, you know? So I think, we are poor till the time we keep wanting, and the time we stop wanting, we are rich. So, and I think that is what I think for me, the biggest thing about, Gandhi itself is the fact that he contained his own being in such limited needs and desires. And he had some really exaggerated, ideas and experiments that he did about desires and, curtailing that and so forth. And many people have talked about it. But for me, he's singularly being that, that two pieces of cloth around him, minimizing the needs and doing, and, he was all about the whole, Sarvodaya, which is, basically the welfare for all. So welfare for all will only happen when everyone starts sort of also limiting their own desire to kind of, be better off than the Jonases. So I think that is a big, big thing that Gandhiji has taught me, that if you can, and if you have the, the whole, power within you to contain your own desires and your own needs, and you then become a much more sustainable, a much more equal world.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that, Sambal. Mamta, ma'am?
Ma'am, just one point. Shiksha Kendra is the best example of sustainability, of using the resources. The classes are there. All those resources, it's someone who thinks that it can be used again and again. So I think at DPS Gurgaon, we do practice to the best.
Yeah. So the very fact that all our books are recycled, thanks to the parents, all the uniforms are recycled. And I think the two children who studied here and the teachers who teach here know that if you really want to press my danger button, you have to tell me if you have to be making a chart. I dislike the creation of charts because I find they're quite meaningless. They have no meaning at all. And every piece of paper in the school is recycled till it cannot be used anymore. So I think those are very important lessons. Children learn from that. For me, that's very important that they should learn. We are walking the talk. We're not just saying it. We're actually doing it. So the last official question goes out to Mamta, ma'am, that when Gandhiji was emphasizing on self-discipline, which Sambal also spoke about just now, we find that somewhat missing in the youth and in adults. I mean, I'm not only talking about children and youth. So how can this be taught? Can it be taught? Or can we teach them to overcome, and just try and regulate yourself in a certain way that no one has to tell you? So this is my favorite with children. I say, I scold you or I check you because I don't want anyone in the world to check you. You're mine, So I think Karthik has heard it a couple of times, so he's nodding very vigorously. So that batch was one of my first batches, so I was almost at their case all the time. So Mamta, any ideas on what we can do to indicate, imbibe, and teach children and adults how to be self-disciplined?
Thank you, ma'am. Basically an optimist. So I'm sure there are, when we talk to the children, we find that they can work on their self-discipline. So what is self-discipline? Self-discipline is restraint. It means self-control. There is an aspect of perseverance and endurance and taking the task to the end. If you need to take the task to the end, that means you need to have a goal, You need to have a focus, and you can just break it up and achieve it. I'll just give you an example. During the pandemic, we were talking to our children, we were making these phone calls to their parents, and I have this very smart young gentleman who's talking to me with his parents, and he's telling me lots of things. And I said, okay, how do you break up your 24 hours? Not much for studies. And then I understood while talking to him, there was a lot of Netflix, lot of hours given over to Netflix, and there was no walking. At that time, people were not allowed to move out, so there was no exercising. So naturally, there was a lot of couch potato activities. I said, but this will not do. And let's talk another time. Maybe let's focus. And he himself realized. He says, no, ma'am, I'll focus, and I'll create a timetable for myself. Second time, we find that he's given more hours to studies. Still not enough. His parents are still, a little wary. And the third time when I spoke to him, because the camera was on, he was a slimmer gentleman and more hours to studies and doing well. And this has happened with many. So I think as young learners, as youth leaders, as young people, they know that they have to focus. Time will just fly by. And they know that it has to come from within. It has to be something that they can do. I can only tell them. We can give them examples. They can follow someone, they can look at their parents, but it has to be deep-seated and within. So it is only when these things will happen, they will do it. But I see many of them doing it. So I'm sure they will be able to.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mamtavan. Any ideas from anybody else? Anyone wants to add in? Yes, Suparna ma'am. Yes, Avni.
Just a small add-on to what Mamta ma'am said and what Avni started with. I would just like to connect both of them that we teach them to dream, and then by self-discipline, we can also teach them that you can achieve those dreams.
Wow, absolutely. Yes, Avni?
Ma'am, I just want to add what Mamta ma'am said is that if we provide our students, our children with an alternative, even the youth, in today's situation, if there's a relevant alternative to things, if we see outside of beautiful nature, we know this is the alternative if we behave in a particular way. So I think they will be more curious and they'll be more than ready to imbibe these qualities of sustainability.
Wow. Very nice. Thank you. Any of the parents want to add in? Children, you're very quiet today. Most unlike you. Is it too early in the morning?
No, not at all.
Okay. So I'm going to come to the fun bit now, which is, Sambhu spoke about Sarvodaya, and Gandhiji's one of his favorite songs was Vaishnava Janato. So that is that everybody's pain should be yours. Jisko peed padai jane re. So we've come together to sing that song for the audience. So panelists, you will also enjoy this. Devek, if we can have the song, please. So that was a collaborative song which we all did.
It was very beautiful, ma'am. Very, very beautiful.
Thank you so much.
I
We'll
loved
share
it.
it with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You
One
love
thing
the
is
other
for
thing
sure,
even
like
more.
the virtual world can't hold us back. Like, everything
And
we did in
no,
COVID,
I've been saying it. I said we are in lockdown at home, but the mind is completely unlocked. It's like soaring, and I'm not limited by anything when I'm in virtual space. So this has been a coming together. The idea of Gandhi, of bringing everyone together, and yet that power of one was not forgotten. That even if nobody is with you, just carry on. So when he started his Dandi March, by the way, he started alone. He made the announcement. He said, I'm going to break the salt law. And he started off. He didn't even look back. And scores of people started following him. No questions. I mean, look at the power of the man that nobody's asking, kahan ja rahe ho? Kitni der ke liye ja rahe hain? Kya karne ja rahe hain? They just followed. That is the trust and the faith that the man inspired. And this, we'll now have a dance, which the students have done on his other favorite song, Akla Cholo. That walk alone, even if nobody walks with you, just walk and do what you have to do. And that's the message I want to give to all the viewers and whoever can watch this, that do the right thing, do it alone, do it even when nobody is watching, do it because it's the right thing, it's the truthful thing to do. Deve, the dance, please.
There is an indefinable, mysterious power that pervades everything. I feel it, though I do not see it. It is this unseen power which makes itself head and yet defies all truth, where there is a clear determination, summarily, to reject all that is contrary.
যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে তবে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে তবে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে যদি কেউ কথা না কয় ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা কেউ কথা না কয় যদি সবাই থাকে মুখ ফিরায় সবাই করে ভয় যদি সবাই থাকে মুখ ফিরায় সবাই করে ভয় তবে পরাণ খুলে তবে পরাণ খুলে তুই মুখ ফুটে তো মনের কথা একলা বলো রে তুই মুখ ফুটে তোর মনের কথা একলা বলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে जब काली घटा छाए भोरे भोरे हो अंधेरा सच को निगल जाए जब दुनिया सारी डर के आगे सर अपना झुकाए जब दुनिया सारी डर के आगे सर अपना झुकाए तो शोला बन जाए वो शोला बन जाए जो खुद जल के जहां रोशन कर दे अगला जोलो रे जो खुद जल के जहां रोशन कर दे अगला जोलो रे যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে
Beautiful.
Again, all from their homes, as you can see. Drawing rooms, dining rooms, bedrooms, and I think they did an excellent job. So as we come to the end of our chat, let me leave you all with 1 minute each to talk about what aspect of Gandhi and his philosophy stays with you and will stay with you forever. So I'll start in the same order. Let Karthik start first.
What aspect of Gandhian philosophy will stay with me?
Has stayed with you and will stay with you forever.
I think what has stayed with me is definitely minimalism. I think, ma'am, you know that with respect to our discussions on decluttering, our endless discussions on decluttering. I'm a proponent of that, and I actively look to, as in my mother's words, I actively look to throw out something or the other from the house, which is valuable to her, but invaluable to me. So I think that has stayed with me, and truly I see how that the quest for a minimalist environment truly declutters the mind, because there's such a deep relationship between what we have in our environment and what goes on in our mind. So the clarity of the mind is brought about by the clarity of the environment, and vice versa, because they have a deep relationship. That has stayed with me. And what will stay with me is the principle of ahimsa. Um, as Bhavya very rightly said, to learn to not react but to respond, and how we can use that to do away with the desire to harm, the desire to react, the desire to show power in order to cause any sort of damage. Um, that is something that will truly stay with me, and I'm trying to adopt that more and more into my life, into my rehni sehni kehni, as it is said, and I hope to God that it manifests itself and I achieve my ideal vision. So that's pretty much it.
Very nice. Very well said. And I must tell you, Karthik, the last time you came to my house and you saw all my Ganeshjis in one spot and you said, oh, declutter, declutter. It actually got me thinking. And because I've
Lovely.
been collecting over 35 years, I have more than 100 Ganeshjis in my house. So I actually put them all over the place, so it now has breathing space. So you do
Lovely.
influence.
Good to hear.
The same idea with Vinita. What
Ma'am,
has stayed with you and what will stay? Any one aspect.
The most important thing that has inspired me always is his simplistic living. The kind of living that he propagated. That, like I said earlier, the need to define between what you want and what people around you want you to want. So as we go forward in this year, the only thing I would like to do is let's redefine rather what is normal for us, what is normal for me and what is normal for you. Be mindful of the normal, and let's just not go back to the way of living that was there. So if we go through that process of refining ourselves, it obviously will reflect in our environment, in our society, in our children, everywhere. I think the thought will go everywhere.
Brilliant idea, I think. Avni, I'm going in the same order of the questions.
Ma'am, for me, I think truth is something which I have been trying to follow and would like to follow in the future. Being true to myself, to my family, to my students, to my profession. I think that is something I hold very close to my heart and would like to continue following in my heart.
Very good. Thank you. Bhavya.
I think what's influenced me the most, and it was actually brought on by Mamta ma'am and you bringing up that chart example. I think it's be confident to do your thing, even if you're the only one standing. I remember we started using newspapers on the notice boards where we would thumbtacks.
When you were students, yes.
Yes, and that was so beautiful. And I've taken that idea to like various institutions I've been a part of, and everyone's surprised, and and then it just spreads like wildfire. So
wow.
what stayed with me is that you can do so much good. And what I think I want to work even more on is that while you can do so much good independently, you're also capable of doing a lot of harm. So be empathetic, be really careful about what you say, what you do. And that's something, I work towards and I will work towards.
Thank you, Bhavya. That was such a beautiful thought. And thank you for taking the newspaper idea outside of school also. Sumbul.
For me, I think the single most important thing about Gandhiji and something that I wish I can become even maybe 1/16th of is his resilience. What resilience he has shown. It is immaterial as to what size, what height, how rich, how intelligent you are. It is about how resilient you are. It is all about at the end of the day. He was such a strong man because he had the power within. So he was physically so frail, he didn't have the best means. He wasn't the most intelligent person either. But he had the, like within him, the power and the resilience to stand by his principles. And others just took lead and they just sort of followed him through. So yes, it is about resilience, about human spirit, really.
Absolutely. Anamika?
Ma'am, for me, it would be doing my bit to leave a sustainable world for the coming generations. And it's not only a national or an international responsibility for all of us. We have to first do our bit in our homes. And I try to stick to that, reduce plastic and use my resources rationally. That's it, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anamika. Ruhi? Ruhi?
Ma'am is muted.
Sorry.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing which I've been following and I'm a firm believer is being truthful. Truthful to oneself and to the people around you. And this is one trait which I'm trying to inculcate on a daily basis in my daughter as well. I've been telling her that you don't have to be fearful of letting out the truth. It is something which is brave. So that sense of pride which comes out of speaking the truth is something which you're going to live with. And thing which I would want to inculcate now is I think it's going to be rethinking my desires. This pandemic has taught us a lot that there is a lot of things which we can do without. So that is one thing which I would now have to kind of get into a minimalistic kind of an approach.
Wow. Suparna, ma'am?
Ma'am, one important value of Gandhiji, which is to look for good in everyone and in every situation. And to be a leader without being the leader is what I feel
Nice.
is close to my heart. Thank you,
Mamta?
Simple living. I think so. This is what I've learned in the pandemic. It becomes easy to move forward if there's not too much of clutter. And this is something that I need to practice. It's not easy for me. So this is my thought that in the coming days and the years, I need to remove the clutter, move ahead. It'll become much more easier for me. If I remove things from my life, it gives me more focus. It gives me more orientation. Thank you.
Wow. Call Karthik to your house one day. He'll help you. So I want to bring in the non-panelists who are here to help me. Deve, what do you think? Because you've been working at this event, at the dances and the music, and I'm sure it's touched you in different ways. What do you think? What part of Gandhian thought do you hold close to you?
Ma'am, it's going to be just to be truthful. I like to be truthful to my profession, to my family, and to myself, and would just like to carry this forward because I think it really helps. It just helps you to stand by in front of everyone. If you're honest, then you can move ahead. If you're dishonest, somewhere down you will stumble. So I think being truthful is good.
Nice. Thank you. Chanchal?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I strongly believe in honesty. And if you are honest to your work, if you're honest towards your behavior, everything will automatically fall in place. You need to be honest all the time.
Very nice.
That is my
Very
mantra
nice.
for life.
Very nice mantra. Good mantra, very safe mantra to follow. Bhavna? Bhavna, you're muted, beta.
For me, it is minimalism, ma'am. I completely second what Karthik said. And I do declutter my home all the time. Whatever is not required, I just let go of it. I don't like to hold on to things. Yeah. So it's minimalism for me, ma'am.
Okay. And last, not the least, Satna ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. For me, I think it would be Ekla Chalo. So even if no one is with you, with your conviction of truth, honesty, integrity, and resilience, just keep following the path that your heart and brain takes you. Ekla Chalo. That's what how I feel about Gandhi.
Very nice. I think it's been a lovely discussion. I've learned a lot. I'm taking from where Bhavna said something that she throws away things if they've not been used. I have this constant fear that the day I throw it, I clean it the next day. So I blame my clutter on that. So I will definitely, I mean, I'm on the declutter mode now. So I'm going to get rid of a couple of things. So I would like to end this session by a very, very warm, heartfelt, and profuse thanks to all the panelists. I think you've all spoken so beautifully. And what is amazing is nobody has repeated an idea. It has all been individual, new ideas which have made this whole bouquet really beautiful. So thank you for sparing your hour and a half and being with us. You are all integral parts of DPS Sector 45, and we are blessed to have you in our midst and blessed that you shared your time with everybody. I must also thank the people behind the scenes, Divya, who got the song and the dance ready, and he's our expert mixer. Vaishali ma'am, who prepared the dance, did a beautiful job. I think it's not easy making children dance from their homes and make it look as if it's been done, by experts. Kaustav, Ritu, and Uma Shankar, who helped with the music. Chanchal and Bhavna, who are always for the tech support. Last but not the least, the three coordinators, Pooja, Rekha, and Mamta ma'am. Are Pooja and Rekha here?
They would be there, maybe on the other side, ma'am.
Okay, they must be on the Facebook side. Okay. And now, last but not the least, Sapna ma'am, without whom all these webinars would have fallen flat if she had not been there day and night, ideating with me, thinking, debating, discussing, disagreeing, agreeing, all of that. So a big thank you to the entire team, and a big thank you to the viewers for being with us, for watching, and for sharing your ideas and comments on Facebook. I've had one eye on that as well. It's been a pleasure. May we all live the Gandhian way. May we all stick to the truth. May we all remain non-violent in thought, deed, and action. And may we all rise together. His own idea of Sarvodaya and Antyodaya. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.